So right now we're going to start focusing on operating, turning on, operating, and running the separating machine. So first we have to turn the transformer on. There's a red power button. Turn the power button on the transformer, right down there. We'll then go to the circuit breaker on the side of the machine. Flip it up, turn it on. We have the power button here. This is going to be the fan that moves the air. And this is going to be the button for the brushes that actually move the capsules. So we'll turn the air on. Then we'll turn on our brushes. Then we'll turn the power on the machine. Now as you can see, the machine is running. This is the speed control knob. The lower to the left, slower the speed. You see it here on the meter. The higher to the right, the higher the speed. We don't recommend running it any faster than about 3/4 speed. Then of course, you go down from there. The hopper. Adjust the speed during the process, we can. Down, up, to about 3/4 of top speed. Once the separating machine is finished, there's no more bodies and tabs coming out. We'll turn the power off of the machine. Turn the fan off. Turn the brushes off.
Good.
Okay. So if you're having issues with the separating machine, if the capsules and the bodies are not being separated, there's a few issues to look into first that will be the most simple fixes, the most common problems. First is going to be crushed capsules inside the capsule splitters here. So if capsules are crushed in here and jammed in, those areas are not going to be able to function properly, and you're going to be spitting out capsules and bodies that are still connected. So first thing to do is to manually move the machine and check each individual hole to make sure there's nothing stuck in there that's going to prevent the machine from working properly. If there's nothing in here or we've cleaned it out, the next thing we want to do is make sure that our arms here, our arms, are lining up perfectly. As the machine cycles through and the capsules and the bodies, the tops and the bodies are being spit out, if these arms aren't lining up perfectly, they're not going to be operating the way they're supposed to be. So we have to look into that. And there's a few things that we can do if they're not lining up properly to fix that problem. I think it's pretty good, right? And then, so the next step here, we're going to take one of these arms off, show the components, and what we can do to make them operate properly. So now, if we haven't been able to fix the problem so far, we're going to take off one of these arms to be able to further troubleshoot the issue. Two screws. There we go. So, we'll take our arm out. complete with the rollers here and this removable pin. We also have this spring we got to keep a hold of. Got our spring up here. 2 screws. Now, if this is too tight, if it's not moving correctly, they won't line up correctly. One of the biggest problems with that is rust or debris inside here what this pin is. So we take the pin out and examine it for rust or debris or gunk. We clean the pin off using emery cloth and treat it with WD-40. We can then put the pin back in. It slides in smoothly, it's working well. We also have to take a look at these rollers and this screw. If this screw is too loose or the rollers are missing bearings, then we're not going to be getting the proper function out of the machine. Take the screw out, place the arm down, remove the 2, and look for the ball bearings. If the bearings are broken or missing, the inside ring will be gone. We'll have to replace these, okay? And also check for anything that might be stuck in there, preventing proper performance. There we go. So you put this back on, you gotta make sure this screw finishes tight. And that could be another possible reason of issues, is if some of these are tight and some of these are loose. You want everything to be the same when they're lining up to split the capsules. Everything to be the same. So that's good. The rollers are moving well. No issues with the ball bearings. We also want to take a look at this pad. If this pad is cracked, because it's a rubber or a plastic material, if this pad is cracked, this pad is missing, we're also going to have issues that's going to cause bad timing on the separating machine. So we've checked that. We've checked our rollers. Our pin is clean. The next step would be to reinstall the arm. Put our spring back in. Place our arm where it belongs. Start with one of the screws. Screws in. It's very important that we don't tighten one without tightening the other. We want to go back and forth to keep it balanced. Because if one is too tight and one is too loose, then the arm is not going to sit properly and it's going to be tilted. If that arm is tilted, then again, we're going to have an issue with them lining up. So it looks like the washer is too far down, so I'm going to have to back this out. I'm going to pull that back out for a second. Try and even up my pin. And I'm just going to do it a little less tight this time. So hopefully the other one there, that's in. Just a little bit. Now see if we can't get this other one in. I think we might have to do this part over again. Having a hard time getting this pin underneath the washer. All right, that's in a little bit. I think we might have it this time. So slowly and evenly, put pressure on the pin with the washers by tightening down the screws. If the arm is cocked in its channel, it's not going to separate the capsules properly. You want it down tight and firm, but not overly tightened. Now we can check to see if the arm is flexing properly. Feels good. Check it against some of the other arms that are working properly. And if you look at it again, you want these seated well. You want this flush. You want to see, as you go, that it's going to line up well with its corresponding side. That's how to take off, clean, and reinstall one of the arms. So we've covered the common problems that we've had. We've covered how to remove, clean, and reinstall the arm. Now, if we're still having issues and we want to be able to check the machine as a whole, we can take our wheels off. Okay? But the first thing we have to do to take our wheel off is to remove this barrier arm. We have an Allen screw here. Just be careful. It's kind of small. You don't want to strip it. Pull our Allen screw. A little bit more. There we go. We'll pull our barrier arm out. Okay. The wheel cannot come off if the barrier arm is still installed. So now we'll remove this large nut. It's also important to note that if you see any difference in spacing between this wheel and the body of the machine and this wheel and the body of the machine like we see here, that's going to cause issues. So by tightening these to the same strength, we're going to be able to avoid that. We can take the nut off, the plate, and we can remove the wheel. Okay. So we turn the wheel over for anything that might be accumulating, any grease, any grit, but especially check the rollers with the ball bearings to make sure they're evenly lined up throughout the plate. Okay, so check to see if they're at the same height. If they're off, they're going to cause the machine to have malfunctions. So we check, make sure they're all even, and we reinstall the plate. Okay, when you reinstall the plate, you've got a pinhole here and a pin here that have to line up. So you place it, okay, lift up slightly, make sure it lines up. There. The pin is lined up with the pinhole. Lift it up slightly. Place the wheel back in the machine. Get our plate with the rim side down. Reinstall our nut. as you can see again, we have very little space between the body of the machine and the wheel. We have a good gap here. So you just want to tighten down until that gap goes away and it becomes firm. See that? And now they're even. So in order to reinstall the barrier arm, we need to remove one of the arms again to check that it's lining up properly. One screw and one washer. Pull this out. We have another screw. Thank you very much. Thank you. And the pin. Now that we removed the arm, we need to reinstall the barrier pin. And get our Allen wrench. Getting ready to tighten it back down when it's in the correct spot. Now the goal here is to get this in and lined up where it's gonna barely make contact with the capsule that it's touching. You can see right here, you want the barrier pin to line up right at the edge of those holes. I'm going to tighten down my Allen screw slightly for some pressure on the pin. Push the pin down so it's flush at the top. Continue to tighten it down. Give it firm pressure, but don't overdo it. Now we have the barrier pin back installed. Repeat the process with the arm. Make sure your pin's in place. Place one screw. Tighten slightly. Place the other screw. Tighten slightly. Alternating screws as you tighten. Make sure it's lined up properly. It seems to feel as tight as the ones around it that are working properly. Now we have the loading chute. If we have any issues with capsules that are remaining fully locked, they're kicking out and the caps are not being pulled off at all. Sometimes that can be an issue in the chute area, the loading chute area. So, remove the cap nuts. issues of jamming are going to minimize if you don't overfill the hopper. So, as we remove the cover plate, we see the two brushes that the machine employs. This brush here to push the capsules down out of the hopper, and this brush here to move against the capsules as they come into the holes. If we're having issues with capsules being fully locked when they're being spit out of the chutes, oftentimes it's part of an issue with this plastic guard. If this plastic guard is off or it's broken, when the capsules are kicked back, they're not being kicked back against this soft plastic. They're being kicked back against this hard metal beam here. So as they're being kicked against this, it's pushing the capsules farther together. Okay? So they're going to be harder to separate in the machine. So if you're having an issue with that, first check our little plastic guard here. It's either broken or out of place. So once this is in place properly and the capsules are able to bounce against that softly, you should be able to eliminate a lot of those problems. Check both the brushes to make sure there's no issues. If you're having jamming problems, you're probably overfilling the hopper. So we want to keep this here about maybe 1/3 to 1/4 high as you're filling. You only want it to go right to about here. All right. This lever here controls the quantity of capsules going to the brush at any given moment. If you lower this, it slows down the rate that they reach the brush. That can help also. But number one with jams is not to overfill the hopper. So it's the same exact process to put the cover plate back on. Gonna take our cap nuts